Nyra never imagined that the man she loved would be the one to break her heart in front of everyone. For years, she had stood beside Alpha King Zevian, believing that their bond was stronger than any challenge they could face. She knew his cold personality. She knew he rarely showed his emotions. She knew the responsibilities of being an Alpha King weighed heavily on his shoulders. But she also knew the man hidden behind that cold exterior. The man who once held her hand and promised he would never let anyone hurt her. The man who once told her she was the only person who could bring peace to his heart. That was the Zevian she loved. But lately, that man had disappeared. The warmth in his eyes was gone. The conversations they once shared became silence. The affection he once showed became distance. And no matter how hard Nyra tried to reach him, Zevian continued to push her away. Still, she stayed. Not because of her title. Not because she wanted to be called Luna. She stayed because she loved him. She believed that every relationship had difficult moments. She believed that the man she married was still somewhere beneath the anger and pride. But she never expected that his pride would become the reason he destroyed everything between them. The night everything changed was supposed to be a celebration. The entire pack gathered inside the Great Hall, waiting for Alpha King Zevian and Luna Nyra to appear together. Nyra stood beside Zevian, wearing the Luna crown she had received on the day they promised their lives to each other. She looked at him and smiled softly. For a moment, she hoped that maybe this night would bring them closer again. Maybe Zevian would finally look at her the way he used to. Maybe he would remember that she was not his enemy. She was the woman who had always chosen him. But when Zevian stepped forward, Nyra immediately noticed. Something was wrong. His face was emotionless. His eyes were distant. And the man standing in front of everyone no longer looked like the man she loved. "I have an announcement to make," Zevian said. The hall became silent. Nyra looked at him, waiting. Then his next words shattered her heart. "Luna Nyra is no longer fit to stand beside me." A wave of shock moved through the crowd. Nyra froze. She stared at him, hoping he would explain, hoping this was some kind of misunderstanding. But Zevian continued. "An Alpha King needs a Luna who can strengthen his position. Someone who understands power and knows how to represent this pack." His eyes moved toward her. "You have become a weakness." Those words hurt more than she expected, not because he questioned her ability, not because he removed her title, but because he said it in front of everyone, in front of the people who trusted her, in front of the people who watched her sacrifice everything for him. Nyra quietly looked around the hall. Everyone was watching. Some looked shocked. Some looked uncomfortable. But nobody spoke, because nobody wanted to challenge the Alpha King. She slowly turned back to Zevian. "After everything I have done for you, this is how you choose to repay me?" For a brief moment, something changed in Zevian's expression. A hint of regret. A moment of hesitation. But his pride quickly returned. "This is not personal, Nyra. This is about what is best for the pack." Nyra gave a small, painful smile. "That is what you tell yourself, so you don't have to admit that you are hurting me." The hall became even quieter. Zevian's jaw tightened. He was not used to anyone questioning him, especially not her. Nyra reached up slowly and removed the Luna necklace from her neck. The same necklace Zevian had placed on her himself. The same necklace that represented their bond. She held it in her hand for a few seconds. Then she placed it on the table between them. "If being your Luna means losing my dignity, then I no longer want this title." Zevian looked at her. For the first time that night, he seemed unsure. But Nyra had already made her decision. She looked at the man she loved one final time. "I hope one day you realize what you lost tonight." Then she walked away. No crying, no begging, no fighting for a place in his life. She left with the only thing Zevian could never take from her. her self-respect. And as the doors closed behind her, Zevian believed he had made the right decision. He believed Nyra would eventually return. He believed she needed him more than he needed her. But he was wrong. Because the woman who walked away that night would return as someone completely different. And when Zevian saw her again, he would finally understand that losing Nyra was the biggest mistake of his life. 3 months had passed since Nyra walked away from Zevian. 3 months since she left the place she once called home. 3 months since she heard the man she loved announce in front of everyone that she was no longer worthy of standing beside him. Nyra to return. They believed her anger would fade. They believed she would eventually miss the comfort of the royal palace and the power that came with being Luna. But they were wrong. Nyra never came back. She disappeared quietly, leaving no message and asking no one for help. And that was the one thing that bothered Zevian more than he wanted to admit. He had expected tears. He had expected arguments. He had expected Nyra to fight for her place beside him. But she did none of those things. She simply walked away. And somehow, her silence was louder than any words she could have spoken. At first, Zevian convinced himself that it was better this way. He told himself that a true Luna would understand the decision he made. He told himself that emotions could not be allowed to control an Alpha King. But as the days passed, something felt different. The palace no longer felt the same. The halls that once carried Nyra's laughter were now quiet. The rooms where she spent hours helping others were empty. The people who once came to her for advice now whispered about how much they missed her presence. Even the warriors who rarely spoke about feelings admitted that the pack felt incomplete without their Luna. Zevian noticed everything, but he refused to admit the truth. He missed her. Not her title, not what she represented. Her. He missed the way she challenged him when he was wrong. He missed the way she could calm him with just a few words. He missed the way she looked at him like he was not a king, but simply a man. A man who was loved. But pride kept him silent. Until one evening, something happened that changed his thoughts completely. Zevian was reviewing reports from different parts of the territory when one of his advisors entered the room with a, "Alpha King, there is something you need to know." Zevian looked up. "What is it?" The advisor hesitated. "It is about Luna Nyra." The moment he heard her name, Zevian's attention changed. "What about her?" The advisor placed a document on the table. "She has been helping several abandoned villages outside our territory." Zevian frowned. "Helping them?" The advisor nodded. "Yes, she has been using her own resources to rebuild homes, provide protection, and restore peace between groups that have been fighting for years." Zevian stared at the report. For a moment, he said nothing, because everything written there sounded exactly like the Nyra he knew. The woman who cared even when nobody was watching. The woman who helped people without expecting anything in return. The woman he called a weakness. His fingers tightened around the paper. "How long has she been doing this?" "Since the day she left." The answer struck him. Since the day she left. While he was sitting on his throne, convincing himself that he had made the right decision, Nyra was out there proving exactly who she was. Not a weakness, not a burden, a true leader. For the first time, doubt entered Zevian's mind. Had he made the biggest mistake of his life? Before he could think further, another warrior rushed into the room. "Alpha King." Zevian immediately stood. "What happened?" The warrior looked worried. "There is trouble at the northern border." Zevian's expression changed. "What kind of trouble?" "A powerful enemy group has appeared. They are challenging our authority, and several smaller packs are considering joining them." The room became tense. Zevian immediately began giving orders. But something unexpected happened. The warrior looked uncertain before speaking again. "There is one more thing." "What?" "The leaders of those smaller packs are asking for one person before they make their decision." Zevian narrowed his eyes. "Who?" The warrior took a breath. "Luna Nyra." Silence filled the room. Zevian felt his chest tighten. Even after leaving, Even after everything he did to her, people still trusted her. They still believed in her, because they knew something he had forgotten. A true leader was not someone who demanded loyalty. A true leader earned it. That night, Zevian stood alone in the same hall where he had humiliated Nyra. He looked at the place where she had removed her Luna necklace. For the first time, he allowed himself to remember the pain in her eyes. Not anger, not hatred, just heartbreak. And that memory haunted him, because deep inside he knew the truth. Nyra had not abandoned him. He was the one who pushed her away. Meanwhile, far away from the palace, Nyra stood overlooking a small village she had helped rebuild. She was no longer the woman who left 3 months ago. The pain had changed her. The betrayal had changed her. But it had not destroyed her. She had discovered something important. Her worth was never determined by whether Zevian chose her. She was valuable because of who she was. As the wind moved through her hair, one of her closest companions approached her. "Luna Nyra, a message has arrived." Nyra turned. "A message from who?" The companion lowered her head. "From Alpha King Zevian." For a moment, Nyra said nothing. A part of her heart still reacted to his name. But the woman she had become was no longer willing to forget the pain she had suffered. She slowly took the letter. And as she opened it, she had no idea that the words inside would begin a journey that would change everything. Nyra stared at the letter in her hands for several moments before opening it. She had imagined this moment many times. She had imagined Zevian realizing his mistake. She had imagined him coming to find her and finally admitting that he was wrong. But now that the moment had arrived, she felt something different. She felt calm. The pain she once carried was no longer controlling her. Slowly, she opened the letter. "Nyra, I know I have no right to ask anything from you after what happened. I know my actions caused you pain, and I know words cannot undo what I did. But the pack needs you. I need your help." Nyra stopped reading for a moment. Those last words caught her attention. "I need your help. Not I miss you. Not I was wrong. Not I want you back. Just a request." She continued reading. "The Northern Territories are facing threats, and many leaders are asking for your guidance. I would like you to return and help us protect the pack." Nyra lowered the letter. For months, she had waited for Zevian to understand what he had done. But now, even when he needed her, he still struggled to admit the truth. She looked out toward the village she had helped rebuild. This place had become her new beginning. Here, she was not someone's rejected mate. She was not a forgotten Luna. She was simply Nyra, a woman who had found her own strength. Her companion looked at her carefully. "Are you going back?" Nyra remained silent. The old version of herself would have returned immediately. She would have rushed back because Zevian needed her. She would have ignored her own pain because she loved him. But that woman no longer existed. "I don't know," Nyra finally answered. Her companion nodded. "You don't owe him anything." Nyra looked down at the letter. "I know." "Then why do you look like you are still considering it?" Nyra sighed softly. "Because no matter what happened between us, innocent people should not suffer because of our problems." That was always who Nyra was. Even after being hurt, she still cared. But this time, she would return with boundaries. Not as the woman who begged for love. Not as the Luna who accepted being humiliated. She would return as someone who knew her own worth. When Nyra arrived back at the palace, everyone noticed the change immediately. The woman who walked through the gates was not the same woman who had left. Before, she carried sadness in her eyes. Before, she looked like someone waiting to be chosen. Now, she looked like someone who had already chosen herself. The guards immediately bowed. "Welcome back, Luna Nyra." Nyra simply nodded. She was not returning because she wanted attention. She was returning because she wanted to help. But her arrival did not go unnoticed. From the palace balcony, Zevian watched her enter, and for the first time in months, he forgot how to breathe. He expected anger. He expected bitterness. He expected the broken woman he had left behind. But that was not who stood before him. Nyra looked stronger, more confident, more powerful. And somehow, that made him realize exactly what he had lost. When they finally stood face to face, neither spoke for several seconds. The silence between them carried everything they could not say. Zevian was the first to speak. "Thank you for coming." Nyra looked at him calmly. "I came because the pack needs protection." Her words were respectful, but distant, and that distance hurt him more than he expected. Because before, Nyra had looked at him with love. Now, she looked at him like a stranger. "I know you are angry with me," Zevian said. Nyra looked away. "Anger is easy, Zevian." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" She met his eyes. "But anger disappears. What remains is the pain of knowing that the person you trusted most was the one who hurt you." Zevian had no answer, because she was right. For the first time, he wanted to explain himself. He wanted to tell her that he had been afraid, that he thought pushing her away would protect his kingdom, that he thought strength meant ignoring his heart. But every excuse sounded meaningless, because none of them changed what he had done. "I was wrong," he finally said. Nyra froze slightly. Those words were something she never expected to hear. Zevian looked down. "I was wrong to humiliate you. I was wrong to make you feel like you were not enough." His voice became quieter. "You were never my weakness, Nyra." For a moment the old Nyra wanted to believe him, but the wounds were still there. She looked at him. Apologies are easy to say after someone leaves. Zevian felt those words deeply, because they were true. "I know," he replied, "and I don't expect you to forgive me immediately." Nyra studied him. For the first time she saw something different. Not an Alpha King, not a ruler, just a man who finally understood his mistake. But before she could respond, a loud horn echoed throughout the palace. The warning signal. Something had happened. A warrior rushed into the hall. "Luna, Nyra." Both turned. "The enemy has moved closer to our borders." The warrior looked at Nyra. "And they have made a demand." Zevian's expression hardened. "What demand?" The warrior swallowed. "They want Luna Nyra to surrender." The hall became silent. Nyra looked toward the northern direction. She knew this was not just an attack. Someone wanted to test her. Someone wanted to prove that she was still the same woman who had been rejected. But they were about to learn a lesson. Because the Luna who left was gone, and the woman who returned was ready to fight. The entire hall became tense after the warrior delivered the message. Everyone waited for Alpha King Zevian's response. An enemy threatening their territory was nothing new. But this time, it was different. They were not only challenging the kingdom, they were challenging Nyra. Zevian's expression turned cold. "Who sent this message?" The warrior lowered his head. It was from Lord Kalethorn, the leader of the Shadowfang warriors. Kalethorn was known as a ruthless leader who believed fear was the only way to control others. He had spent years trying to expand his influence, forcing weaker groups to follow him. And now, he believed Nyra was the easiest way to weaken the Silver Moon Pack. "He thinks taking Luna Nyra will break our strength," one elder said. Zevian clenched his fist, but before he could speak, Nyra stepped forward. "He is wrong." Everyone looked at her. Nyra's voice was calm. "He believes I am still the woman who was humiliated and forced to leave." She looked toward the northern border. "But he does not know who I became after I walked away." Zevian watched her carefully. There was something different about her. the confidence in her voice, the strength in her eyes. She was no longer asking for permission to be respected. She already knew she deserved it. "We need to prepare our defenses," Zevian said. Nyra turned toward him. "No." The room became silent. Nobody expected anyone to disagree with the Alpha King, especially not Nyra. Zevian looked at her. "What do you mean?" Nyra walked toward the map on the table. "Calethorn does not want a simple battle. If he wanted to attack, he would have already done so." She pointed at several locations. "He is trying to create fear. He wants the pack to believe we are weak." The elders listened carefully. Nyra continued. "The more we react emotionally, the more control we give him." Zevian looked at the map, and he realized something. She was right. The same woman he once called too soft was now thinking several steps ahead. "What do you suggest?" Zevian asked. Nyra looked at him. "Show him that threatening me only united the pack instead of breaking it." For a moment, Zevian simply stared at her. Months ago, he had stood in front of everyone and claimed she was not strong enough. Now, everyone in the room was waiting for her guidance, including him. The irony was impossible to ignore. Over the next few days, Nyra worked alongside the warriors and elders. She did not demand respect. She earned it. She visited injured fighters. She listened to the concerns of families living near the borders. She created strategies with the commanders. And slowly, the pack began remembering why they had loved her as their Luna. Even those who once doubted her now admired her. They saw her strength. They saw her courage, and most importantly, they saw her heart. Zevian noticed everything. He watched her from a distance. The woman he once believed needed him had built an entire life without him, and that realization hurt. One evening he found her standing alone outside the palace. The moonlight surrounded her as she looked over the land. "Do you miss it?" Zevian asked. Nyra did not turn around. "Being Luna." She was quiet for a moment. Then she answered honestly. "I miss the woman I was before I lost myself trying to prove I deserved your love." Zevian felt those words like a wound, because he knew he was responsible. Nyra finally looked at him. "I spent so much time trying to understand why you changed." She paused. "But I never asked myself why I was allowing someone else to decide my worth." Zevian lowered his eyes. "I am sorry." This time, his apology sounded different. There was no pride, no excuse, only regret. "I know sorry cannot fix what happened," he said. "But I need you to know something." Nyra waited. "I never stopped loving you." The words hung between them. For a moment, Nyra's heart reacted, because despite everything, a part of her still loved him, but love alone was no longer enough. "I loved you too," she admitted. Zevian looked at her. "But love without respect destroys people." He had no response, because she was right. A relationship could survive problems. It could survive mistakes, but it could not survive one person constantly making the other feel worthless. Before Zevian could say anything else, another warrior rushed toward them. Alpha King, Luna, Nyra. They turned. "The enemy has crossed the northern border." Zevian immediately became serious. "How many?" "Thousands." The air became heavy, but Nyra did not panic. She looked toward the battlefield ahead. Then she turned to Zevian. "This is the moment where we show them who we are." Zevian looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, he did not see the Luna he had rejected. He saw the woman who had always been beside him, the woman he almost lost forever. Together they walked toward the coming battle, but neither of them knew that the greatest challenge would not be defeating their enemy. It would be deciding whether their broken bond could ever be repaired. The battlefield was silent before the storm. Thousands of warriors stood ready, waiting for the enemy to make their move. The tension could be felt throughout the entire area. But unlike everyone else, Nyra remained calm. She stood beside Zevian, looking toward the approaching army. Months ago, she would have been standing there as his Luna, hoping he would notice her, hoping he would appreciate her, hoping he would finally choose her. But everything had changed. Now she stood there because she chose to, because she knew her value, because she was no longer fighting for Zevian's approval. She was fighting for the people who trusted her. Zevian looked at her from the corner of his eye. He noticed something he had never paid attention to before. Nyra was not strong because she had power. She was strong because she never allowed pain to turn her into a cruel person. Even after everything he did, she still protected the people who needed her. And that realization made his regret even deeper. The enemy army finally stopped. A man wearing dark armor stepped forward. Lord Calethorn. His eyes moved across the battlefield until they landed on Nyra. A cruel smile appeared on his face. So, this is the famous Luna who was rejected by her own Alpha. A few warriors looked uncomfortable. Nyra remained silent. Calethorn laughed. I expected someone broken, someone who would hide after being humiliated. He looked at Zevian. You truly weakened your own kingdom, Alpha King. You threw away the one person who could have stood beside you. Zevian's expression hardened. Choose your next words carefully. But Nyra lifted her hand slightly, stopping him. She did not need him to defend her. Not anymore. She stepped forward. Is that all you came to say? Calethorn looked surprised. Nyra continued. You believe my past makes me weak. You believe someone who has been hurt cannot become stronger. She looked directly at him. But pain does not always destroy people. A quiet confidence filled her voice. Sometimes it reveals who they truly are. The enemy leader stared at her. For the first time, his smile faded slightly. Because he expected anger. He expected desperation. He expected the rejected Luna he heard stories about. But the woman standing before him was different. She was fearless. Calethorn raised his weapon. Then prove it. The battle began. The sound of warriors charging filled the land. Zevian led the front line with his strongest fighters, while Nyra remained focused on the strategy they created. She noticed something others missed. The enemy was not attacking randomly. They were trying to separate the warriors from their leaders. Move the left group back, Nyra commanded. The warriors immediately followed her order. Zevian noticed. Her strategy prevented what could have become a disaster. The battle continued for hours, and slowly, the Silver Moon warriors began gaining control. Not because they had more strength, but because they had better leadership. When the enemy finally realized they were losing, Calethorn personally moved toward Nyra. You think winning one battle changes anything? He said. Nyra faced him. You are right. She looked at him calmly. One battle changes nothing. Then she stepped closer. But one truth changes everything. Calethorn narrowed his eyes. And what truth is that? Nyra glanced briefly toward Zevian, then back at him. The people you tried to divide are stronger because they finally remembered who they are. Those words shook the confidence of the enemy leader. Because he understood something. Fear was no longer controlling them. The battle ended soon after. The enemy forces retreated. The Silver Moon pack had won, but as the warriors celebrated, Zevian stood quietly. Everyone praised Nyra. Everyone thanked her. Everyone recognized her leadership. And he realized something painful. The pack had never stopped seeing her worth. He was the only one who failed to see it. Later that night, after the victory celebration, Zevian found Nyra alone. For a moment, he simply watched her. The woman who once waited for him to love her was now the woman everyone admired. "I owe you an apology," he said. Nyra turned. "You already apologized." Zevian shook his head. "No, I said sorry for hurting you." He paused. "But I never apologized for making you believe you were not enough." Nyra became quiet. Zevian continued. "I made you question your value because I was too proud to admit my own mistakes." His voice became softer. "I thought being an alpha meant never admitting I was wrong." He looked at her. "But losing you taught me that a true leader is not someone who refuses to fall. A true leader is someone who has the courage to admit when they have fallen." For the first time, Nyra saw genuine regret in his eyes. Not the regret of losing Aluna. The regret of losing the woman he loved. But before she could respond, a messenger arrived. "Luna, Nyra, Alpha Zevian." They turned. "There is a message from the Eastern Territories." The messenger looked nervous. "What is it?" Zevian asked. The messenger handed over the letter. Zevian opened it. And as he read the words, his expression changed. Nyra noticed immediately. "What happened?" Zevian looked at her. "Have made their decision." He paused. "They want you to become their official protector." Silence filled the room, because everyone understood what that meant. Nyra was no longer just the rejected Luna who left the palace. She had become someone powerful enough that other territories wanted her leadership. And now Zevian faced the greatest fear of all. Not losing a battle. Not losing his kingdom. But losing Nyra forever. Zevian stared at the message in his hand. The words were clear. The Eastern Territories wanted Nyra to become their protector and advisor. They wanted her wisdom. They wanted her leadership. They wanted the woman he once declared was not strong enough. The irony was painful. Months ago he had stood in front of everyone and told the pack that Nyra was a weakness. Now other territories were fighting for the chance to stand beside her. Nyra looked at him quietly. She already understood what the letter meant. This was an opportunity. A new beginning. A chance to build a life where she was valued from the very beginning. "You should accept," Zevian said softly. Nyra looked surprised. Zevian forced himself to smile. "You deserve to be somewhere people recognize your worth." The words hurt him to say, because a part of him wanted to ask her to stay. A part of him wanted to hold on to her and never let her leave again. But he knew something important. Love was not about controlling someone. Love was about wanting the best for them, even when it hurt. "I spent so long believing I had to choose what was best for everyone," Zevian continued. "But I never stopped to ask what was best for you." Nyra looked at him. For the first time she saw the man she remembered. Not the proud Alpha King who humiliated her, but the man who once promised to protect her heart. "I loved you," Nyra said quietly. Zevian looked down. "I know. But I lost myself trying to prove that my love was enough." His eyes lifted toward hers. "And now?" Nyra took a deep breath. "Now I know that love should not require someone to lose themselves." Zevian nodded slowly. He understood. He had no right to demand forgiveness. No right to expect her to return simply because he finally realized her value. He had to accept whatever decision she made. The following weeks were difficult. Nyra continued helping the pack while preparing for her journey. Everyone knew she had a choice to make. Some wanted her to stay. Some believed she belonged beside Zevian. But Nyra knew her heart needed more than words. She needed to know if Zevian had truly changed. One evening, she found him in the training grounds, the same place where he once spent hours trying to become stronger. But this time, something was different. He was not training alone. He was helping younger warriors, teaching them, listening to them. Nyra watched quietly, because she realized something. Zevian was changing. Not because he wanted to win her back, but because he finally understood the kind of leader he needed to become. When he noticed her, he stopped. "I thought you would be preparing for your journey." "I was." A silence followed. Then Nyra asked, "Why are you different now?" Zevian looked at the ground. "Because I finally understood that I was chasing power while losing the person who made me better." He looked at her. "You never wanted my crown, Nyra. You never wanted my position. You only wanted my heart." His voice became emotional. "And I was so afraid of losing control that I pushed away the only person who truly understood me." Nyra remained silent. Zevian stepped closer. "But I don't want you to return because you feel sorry for me. I don't want you to return because you are still my mate. I want you to return only if you choose me again." Those words meant more than any apology. Because for the first time, Zevian was not commanding, he was asking. And Nyra realized something. The man who had broken her heart was finally learning how to love her. Several months later, the entire pack gathered once again. But this time, the atmosphere was different. There was no humiliation, no pain, no rejection. Everyone watched as Nyra stood beside Zevian. But this time, she was not standing there because she needed his approval. She was standing there because she chose him. Zevian stepped forward. "I once made the greatest mistake of my life." The crowd became silent. "I judged the woman beside me without understanding her strength." He turned toward Nyra. "I hurt the person who believed in me when I did not believe in myself." His voice carried through the hall. "Today I do not ask Nyra to stand beside me because she is my Luna. I ask because she is the woman who makes me a better man." Everyone watched as Zevian removed his own royal symbol. Then he placed it in Nyra's hands. This kingdom does not need a ruler who stands above everyone. It needs leaders who stand together. And after everything they had been through, she finally smiled. Not the hopeful smile of the woman who waited for him to change, but the peaceful smile of a woman who had found herself again. She returned the symbol to him. "But remember something, Zevian," she said. He smiled slightly. "What?" "I will stand beside you," she said, "not behind you." Zevian nodded. "That is exactly where you belong, beside me." Years later, people still told the story of the Luna who walked away, the woman who was humiliated in front of everyone, the woman who refused to let heartbreak destroy her, the woman who returned stronger, wiser, and more powerful than before. But the greatest lesson was not about revenge, it was about knowing your worth. Because sometimes losing someone is the only way people realize their value. And sometimes, the person you push away becomes the person you spend the rest of your life trying to earn back. For Alpha King Zevian, losing Nyra taught him the most important lesson of all. A true mate is not someone who makes you powerful. A true mate is someone who makes you better. And this time, he never let her forget how much she meant to him. Thank you for watching this heartfelt love story. If you enjoyed the journey of Zevian and Nyra, kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and join us for more emotional romance stories filled with love, loyalty, and unforgettable moments. Don't forget to like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories every day.